Thank you for joining us at Stone Ridge Connect. This session is multi-entity mastery, intercompany consolidations, and when to use MEM. My name is Ann Diaz, and I'm the practice VP for the Dynamics BC and GP implementation and support teams. I have been at Stone Ridge for about 4 years and have been working in the Dynamics space for many years in full cycle implementations, various roles from consultant to project manager. And my expertise has been in supply chain, finance, and project accounting. I'm here with Laura Kane. She is the senior consultant. She has an accounting and finance background. She has experience leading numerous D365 Business Central implementations across multiple industries, and some of her specialties include nonprofit and multi-entity implementations. Our agenda for today is to talk to you about what Business Central can do out of the box for your multi-entity needs, intercompany and consolidations, but also to share some options if your business grows or changes in the areas around multi-entity management. So we'll start with multi-entity patterns in Business Central. We'll talk about what native BC intercompany and consolidations looks like. We'll share with you what MEM adds to the native BC functionality, and then help you with a decision framework to use BC or BC with MEM. And we'll close out with some real world scenarios. So I'm going to hand things over to Laura to get us started on multi-entity patterns in Business Central.
Okay, thanks, Ann. Hello, everyone. Yes, so as Ann said, I'm going to start with the multi-entity patterns in BC. Are entities legally separate or operationally separate? So separate, multiple BC companies with different process flows, fiscal years, currency, chart of accounts, customers, vendors. But then the shared company is a single company with multiple entities within it, fund or dimension based, shared processes, AP and AR, and centralized accounting. Native BC, it's a very simple do from for a small number of companies. It uses a clear separation of charts, users, and processes. What BC does well is company transactions using the intercompany partners, intercompany customers and vendors, intercompany chart of accounts. And it also has an automated outbox, inbox between companies. So here I have there's some slides on there. When you're setting up your intercompany within BC, you want to decide the chart of accounts within the intercompany transactions. Even if your chart of accounts are different among your companies, you can map these to the specific accounts as needed. So you'd want to go ahead and pull up your intercompany setup. You should set this up with all your companies or a few of your companies, whatever you're wanting to have intercompany transactions with. One thing to note, if the intercompany transactions are back and forth from companies, you want to do the same setup in all your companies that you're going to be having intercompany transactions with. And then one thing to notice is you can set up auto send transactions. What that means is that we have the option to automatically send intercompany transactions over to your intercompany partner. Or if you don't select it, you can go into the inbox and someone can, either you or someone else can review before sending over. I do recommend reviewing these transactions before it's sent over to the intercompany, just until you make sure everything's working as expected. And then after you feel comfortable, go ahead and turn that on. It will save you a few steps. One example that we have here on the slide is we're setting up an intercompany partner with Allen Company called Coronas USA. You can click and add intercompany partners and fill in your information for that company that you want to have, that you're having intercompany transactions with. You will be able to add customer and vendors that would be associated with these intercompany partners, and the receivable payables account, the due to, due from. You also see auto accept transactions on the partner page, setup page as well. which again, I would just make sure everything is working as expected and then go ahead and turn that on. And then lastly, you'll have to remember to go into your vendor and customer cards and make sure there's a field that says IC partner code so that the system does know, in fact, this will be an intercompany transaction whenever you're using this one. So then we can go to the next one. Yep. And then you see consolidations. Consolidate multiple companies into one parent, dimension-based or account-based consolidation, and currency translation support as well. Limitations, batch-orientated, period, close-driven, limited operational visibility during the month, and user access managed at a company level. So one company at a time. Yeah, let's go to the next one. So here we'll have some other screenshots that I have. You would want to, you'll set up a consolidation company that will only do the consolidation process, enter and post elimination entries, and run trial balance reports, different reports within this company. On the companies that you are consolidating, though, you will need to go into the GL account card and assign the equivalent account from these companies to the consolidation company. So I guess depending on your chart of accounts, if they're different, if they're the same, you'll want to kind of have one that goes into the consolidation. Once you've assigned all the accounts in your consolidating company, you will then go to the consolidation company. Consolidation gets tongue-tied, which is where the rest of the setup takes place. You'll search for business units and set up the companies you'd like to consolidate. Once you've done all your companies, you're finished with the setup in the consolidation company. Then you just go into your other companies, your consolidating companies, and just do transactions as you normally would. When you need to look at all the companies consolidated, you will need to go back in to the consolidation company and run the consolidation, which is under the business unit page, which again, we have a screenshot on here for you. You can run consolidation as many times as you want. Each time you run it, it will reverse the original and give you a new entry. You'll then be able to view trial balance, any reports you've built in the consolidation that happened that month, and any transactions that happened that month. And then at the end, you'll just do your elimination entries and run this again and have your final reports. I think the next one. Yeah.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
So we wanted to talk through where you might see native BC start to strain. These are warning signs, they're not failures. Some of these may feel familiar if your business has changed or grown or you've added additional entities. What you might see is that if you have more than a few entities with frequent cross charges, or you have now a centralized AP paying on behalf of many entities, you have users that need to access multiple entities daily, and you have heavy manual reconciliations of due to, due from, you may be starting to see some of the strain. So if those due to, due from reconciliations explode, or AP invoices start to get duplicated across companies, users are logged into the wrong company, or entity reporting requires workarounds, or there are delays, these are some operational symptoms. They're not accounting failures. They're just a symptom that some of the way the system is configured and the way that you're managing multiple entities may need some additional functionality. And that is where MEM can come in. MEM changes how BC is structured. So it's functionality that is on top of what is already there. It is a ISV solution. And with that solution, entities become dimension driven, not company driven. So it uses a single BC company with multiple entities via a global dimension. And then you have entity-based security. So users see only allowed entities. You have automated due to, due from postings. So that's a little bit different than what Laura was describing with the separate entities that you are managing an inbox and an outbox for those postings. You have entity allocations, which is the ability to split expenses and revenue across entities with these already preset allocations, centralized vendors, customers, and bank accounts. So the shift is from company silos to entity awareness. So before versus after with MEM. Without MEM, you would enter a invoice that needed to be split and do so manually. You would have allocation logic for those splits or for your allocations maintained outside of BC, and then that would be a manual allocation entry. And then you'd have manual due to, due from reconciliation. With MEM, you have one invoice entered once, the entity splits are defined at the point of entry, and you have balanced entries that get auto-generated across all of the entities within that company. So your result is less operational friction and then more confidence in the numbers. Security is often the deciding factor for an accounting team. It's a big differentiator. In native BC, security is primarily by company and by role. Dimensions help, but they rely on the discipline of the persons doing the entry. With MEM, you have user entity relationships. You have record level entity restrictions, and so it's safer for shared environments. MEM improves how your business runs, not just how you close. So there are benefits beyond finance. Of course, finance is the primary beneficiary, but beyond accounting, the operations team can also notice the benefit with shared vendors and services, fewer duplicate transactions, and consistent processes across all of the entities. And IT and admin has the benefit of fewer BC companies to maintain, simplified security models, and easier onboarding for new entities. So we'll just walk down row by row here. This is a decision framework for using BC out of the box or using BC with MEM, adding the MEM extension so that you could have the additional functionality. So if your scenario is 2 to 3 companies with light intercompany transactions, native BC is going to be solid. It's going to work really well handling those transactions in the ways that Laura described and handling your consolidations and things like that. If you have frequent cross-entity charges, native BC can handle that, certainly, but you would see some added value with MEM if those were starting to become more and more frequent. Same thing with central AP and shared banking. Native BC can handle that scenario. MEM is going to add some functionality that streamlines that a bit. And then if you have many users, many entities, native BC would be strained there, and MEM would be the better choice to make things efficient, secure, and make things easier across all your different departments. And then for real-time entity reporting, meaning being able to go and look at where a specific entity is at immediately, would be more easy with MEM installed. With native BC, you would need to go through the consolidation process to generate a consolidated report, as opposed to being able to go search and find that at your fingertips with MEM extension installed. So I just want to mention that the stress areas means it's possible, but it might be painful. And this is essentially your takeaway as far as whether or not multi-entity management would enhance your operational process. So when to add MEM? Use native BC when entities operate mostly independently. They have their own processes. They have their own chart of accounts, master records. If intercompany is infrequent or monthly, and if users work in one company at a time. Consider adding MEM to BC when operations are centralized, cross-entity activity is frequent, and leadership wants real-time entity visibility and reporting. The trigger is frequency plus centralization. And I'm going to hand things back over to Laura next. She's going to talk through some additional example scenarios.
Yes, thanks, Ann. So when to use BC, use native BC when entities are mostly independent. Intercompany happens monthly. Users work in one company at a time. Then you going to MEM when you want to centralize operations is the norm. You want to share vendors, cash, customers, staff, things like that. And as Ann said before, leadership wants the entity P&L daily, not at close. So again, you could have it at your fingertips whenever you're ready. So I wanted to kind of talk about one in particular client that I had that was on BC. So I implemented them to MEM last year. Prior to that, they were operating in Business Central with about 8 separate companies. But due to their aggressive acquisition strategy that they started, they were adding multiple entities a year. They chose to implement MEM to streamline and scale their processes. The client operates, this one's a little different than what we've been explaining with centralized. This client operates decentralized for accounts payable, accounts receivable, as each entity remains operationally distinct. To support this model, they standardize their GL account structure across all the companies and use the same banking institution, allowing them to leverage consistent ACH, check, positive pay formats. So it is a little different, but it works for them, the way they're doing this. Then within MEM, it's very straightforward to assign entity, access to users, corporate users, and corporate users in particular have visibility to all the companies at one time. They can work entirely within the MEM environment, eliminating the need to switch back and forth to the individual Business Central companies. Also, when a new entity has been required, onboarding to this Business Central platform is a streamlined process. With some mapping and configuration process, the company can be brought into MEM efficiently and consistently. So that's been a big benefit for them. Then one key advantage of MEM is the ability to centralize AP and AR. They chose to intentionally remain decentralized for now. The important takeaway for this is that they will, if they decide to centralize in the future, the heavy lift is already there because the foundation's already in place. So we did talk to them about that, and this is how they wanted to start it. But again, we can change this to centralize very easily since it's all within the MEM environment. Okay, you want to, I think the next one? Yep. So implementation considerations. MEM uses just the one of your global dimensions. So you have 2 global dimensions. It uses one of those as for the entity. It does require an upfront chart of accounts, dimension, security design. They also, Binary Stream has a great workbook to work through that we can list out have the different questions of the different entities. Users have access to this company, to that company. You can do that with your customers and vendors. If they're separate, if they're together, you can do that as well. So we have a great workbook to start up front with that. And it's best introduced early, but it could be phased later. Like in my example of who I implemented, they were using BC for a long time, just having different companies. But once they decided to change their strategy a little bit, they decided they needed something a little, to help them implement quicker and not, save some time for everybody. That's all I have, Anne. I'll send it back to you.
Yes, thanks, Laura. Yeah, I've also worked with clients that implemented BC initially with 1 or 2 entities and had them separate, and then later decided to retrofit and bring MEM in to manage their new strategy, their new company growth strategy. So that is certainly possible. It's never too late, but we also do want to stress too that BC has the functionality there, and it's really a very it's a business decision, and there will be some key trigger points that will help make the decision. So hopefully the information we've been able to provide will be there for you if that decision is one that impacts your business. So native BC is solid. It's designed for simple scenarios, and we've outlined those in our conversation today. MEM is about scale, security, and then operational clarity and efficiency. And the decision is less about size or number of entities and more about complexity. So it's not company count that's the real driver. And it's more of a situation where you need to decide what the requirements are for your business and that are going to make you the most efficient and effective to achieve your goals. We thank you very much for your time and for joining our session today.
Thank you.